Welcome to the Creative Me podcast, coming to you from Guernsey in the Channel Islands. Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Creative Me podcast. First things first, if I sound a little bit croaky today, I must confess I've been suffering with a cold and sore throat. So you've got the husky version of Martine today. Not an ideal way to start 2017, but nevertheless, I'm powering through and I'm not going to let it stop me achieving everything I have planned for this month and the months to come. Because it's the start of a brand new year, I thought it would be a good idea to focus today's episode on productivity, specifically the concept of inbox zero. It's not a myth, it is a real thing, but it's not necessarily what you think it is. Most people think that inbox zero is about having an empty email inbox. That's not exactly true. The creator of the concept inbox zero, Merlin Mann, what an amazing name, Merlin Mann, explains inbox zero as follows. Now, this is a direct quote. I'm going to read it out to you. It's about how to reclaim your email, your attention, and your life. That zero. It's not about how many messages are in your inbox. It's how much of your own brain is in that inbox, especially when you don't want to be. That's it. Inbox zero, then, is actually all about processes and procedures. It's about having a way that you deal with your emails on a daily basis and doing that consistently so you keep on top of things. It's possible to completely fake inbox zero. I've had this referred to as declaring email bankruptcy. You could go through your inbox and delete everything, working on the basis that if something's super urgent, they'll email you again. But this isn't inbox zero because in a matter of days, probably, your inbox is going to fill up again and you're going to be in the same situation that you were last time. Clearly, this isn't a sustainable way to get on top of your emails. It's all about having a process. But before we look at what that process could be, it's worth thinking about the problems associated with email. The first problem that springs to mind for me is that it's not always the best method of communication. Sometimes having a Skype call, or if you work in an office environment, walking across the office and talking to someone, maybe that's the best way to communicate. Invariably, email generates more email. When does an email exchange actually stop? The amount of times you've got, thanks so much for your help, you're very welcome, I'll see you soon, cheerio, email after email after email, and you forget to delete them. So email generates more email. That's definitely an issue with this communication method. Furthermore, it creates an urge to respond, especially if you have your email program running in the background when you're working at your computer. The minute you see a message ping up in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, it takes your attention, it disrupts what you're doing, and often will create the urge for you to respond there and then. Another big problem I see with people who struggle to manage their email inbox is they're treating their inbox as a task manager. That's not what the email inbox is for. The email inbox is for being an email inbox. Nothing more. it's not a task manager. There are lots and lots of reasons why your email inbox is not a task manager. And actually, what I intend to do is elaborate on this podcast episode in a blog post, which will go into more detail about, why your email inbox isn't a good task manager. It's just not what it's there for, and it doesn't do a good job of it. So please do keep an eye out on the blog for my expanded version of this podcast episode. It'll be in blog post format. But just reinforcing the point, another issue with email is that people use their inbox as a task manager, and that's not what it's designed for. So it doesn't handle task management efficiently. And of course, email is just always there, isn't it? It's in the back of your mind, it's on your screen, it's on your phone. You simply can't get away from it. So there are a lot of problems with email. Okay, we've dealt with the negatives. Now let's start thinking about how we are positively going to tidy up your emails, how we're going to put this new process in place. Like it or not, you are going to have to dedicate some time to having a big cleanup of your inbox. You're going to have to start with a reasonably blank slate in order to implement a new process and to make a success of it. So let's call this the big cleanup. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. Set up a subfolder underneath your inbox folder and call it archive. In that subfolder, I'd like you to drag all of the emails from your inbox that have been dealt with, but you don't want to delete them. You might want to just keep them to refer back to them at a later date, so they could still have some relevance. You can archive them. You don't need them in your inbox. So drag all of those emails into that archive folder. You only need one archive folder. You don't need a bunch of subfolders for each different topic you deal with. Most email programs in this day and age have a decent search function. So if you're looking for an old email, you can just use the search function. So archive the emails that you need to. Delete those that are no longer relevant. Yeah, that's right. I said delete those emails. Honestly, delete them. It's not a problem. Get rid of them. Then what you should be left with in your inbox are the emails that need actioning. We can leave them in there. That's fine for now because we're going to put a process in place to deal with those emails. Just a side note here, and it's probably a topic for an entirely different podcast episode, but you do need to have some sort of to-do list system alongside your Inbox Zero system. Before I mentioned that your email inbox is not a task manager, so you definitely need to have an alternative task manager. That can be anything from a piece of paper. If you're going to go manual, I would suggest getting one big yellow legal pad. I say yellow just so it stands out from all the other paper on your desk, and use that as your master task list. So you can go manual and do it that way. You can use Workflowy, one of my favorites. Perhaps you'd like to use Trello, Asana, whatever you want to use. You need some sort of to-do list to manage your tasks for the day, the week, the month, and so on. That's not the topic of today's show, but it's important to note that a task manager is needed. So what are you going to do with these emails? Right, you've already set up an archive folder. So just to clarify, the archive folder or subfolder is for emails that have been dealt with, but you might need to refer back to at a later date. That's what goes in here. I'd like you to set up 2 more subfolders. The first is called Reply, and the second is called Waiting. I'll explain what those are for. Waiting is for emails where you're waiting for a response, or you might want to process them later. That's the other kind of waiting element. That's what goes in this folder. For example, you might have delegated a task to your virtual assistant and you're waiting for an update. That's the waiting folder. The reply folder is for emails that are going to take longer than 2 minutes to deal with. So they need action, but it's not a quick action. That 2-minute time frame is really important to explain. When you are processing your inbox, I encourage you to apply the 2-minute rule. If you have an email that will take 2 minutes or less to deal with, you may as well deal with it there and then, because it's going to take you longer than 2 minutes to actually process it and put it into your email system, as in your email processing system. So the 2-minute rule is, if something takes less than 2 minutes to process, reply to, just do it. Get it done, get it out of your inbox, and carry on with processing the rest of your email. So that's the 2-minute rule. So therefore, your reply folder contains emails that will take longer than 2 minutes to deal with. Now, anyone listening to this who is a visual learner will most likely want to see a diagram to explain this workflow. I will make sure there is something in the show notes for you. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I am going to do a much more in-depth version of this podcast episode as a blog post. I plan to put some Inbox Zero resources in my private resources library. Just so you know, this is available to members of my VIP email list. So if you'd like to sign up for that and get access to future resources and also the massive bank of resources that are in there already, all you need to do is go to martineellis.com/VIP. It's free to join, and there's loads of great stuff in there to help you with your productivity and all sorts of other things too. So quick plug for the email list there. Honestly, sign up. It's really worth it. So back to the workflow. Now you know what the subfolders need to be. The next stage is to allocate email processing time during your day. So you might have 3 slots during your day. You might process in the morning, at lunchtime, and mid-afternoon, something like that. You have to make your email processing time work for you. Open your email program when you want to process emails, close it when you don't. It's a really good idea to actually put this time on your calendar if you can. So the processing is going through the emails and deciding which folder they need to go in. And then you allocate time to deal with the replies. Simple as that, so she says. I wasn't too sure how this verbal explanation of inbox email would translate to a podcast. Personally, I like to kind of look at things written down. That's why I'm going to make sure there's a diagram in the show notes. But that's a basic explanation of how to achieve Inbox Zero. I've also kind of busted the myth of what Inbox Zero actually is. I really hope that's been helpful. Please look out for the expanded blog post that I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks on martineellis.com. So I'm really interested to know how you get on with this process. Do tweet me, Martine E. Ellis, or send me an email, martine@martineellis.com. I will be starting a Facebook group soon, so I'll share some information about that in due course. You might want to pop into the private Facebook group and talk about your own productivity and email hacks. I'll keep you posted on that one. And also, don't forget to sign up to my VIP list for lots of exciting resources and bonuses. It's free, martineellis.com/VIP. Right, that's it from me today. Here's to a productive 2017. I hope you'll tune into the podcast next week. Thanks for listening.